Which is the Mandela effect. Any of you have heard of the Mandela effect? So you want to lighten us? What
I've heard of it. I couldn't describe it.
All right. So Mandela effect is when there was a different timeline where we, much of us remember Mandela dying in jail, right? But that is a different timeline. So what's real now is he had not died in jail, and he had come out of jail and became the president, and he actually died at home. So I want to just share like some movies. For instance, who knows Disney Snow White, and how about Sleeping Beauty? Okay, so we had this wicked witch looking at a mirror, and how many of you remember her saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fattest of them all?" Right? All of us do, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you watch that movie now, it's not. It's not that at all. It's magic mirror on the wall. So that's considered a Mandela effect, where you remember it one way when you're growing up, like I do, and somehow we have switched into another dimension or a timeline, so to speak. There is a theory that the CERN Hadron Collider is creating these kind of fluctuations in our reality. Basically, the way I could kind of describe it would be whenever a particle is being obliterated that way, it screws with our dimension in a way where it pops that bubble, and we're already put in another bubble that's similar, but there's always this little quirk that's different. There are a few movies I like to say. There's Star Wars. Remember when Luke and Darth Vader's fighting, and Luke loses his arm? He's holding on, and Darth Vader is trying to explain to him that, what? Luke, I am your father. Remember that? You folks all remember that, right?
Yeah.
When you watch that movie now, it's different. It's, "No, I am your father," and then that sucks. I like the Luke. It's more personal, right? And it's more like, "Ah, damn!" Right? So, remember the Field of Dreams, where the whisper of if you build it, what? They would come, right? When you go watch that movie now, it's not that. It's if you build it, he will come. Who's he? Why are you building a whole stadium for one dude, right? Right? Because he's really like, he doesn't want people around while he's watching baseball or something. But that's so trippy because it's different, and it's like hard to explain where now people are be able to use these old Nikon phones to look at the movie, or say Britney Spears, where it's like, "Hit me, baby, one more time," and she had this kind of microphone that was strapped to her head, right? But now when you watch that, she doesn't have any of that on, and she's all in black instead of pink the way she was before. Yeah, it's different. So it makes you wonder, like, how does that happen and all that? It's just really bizarre. I am into not just Mandela effect, but I'm really like learning about, like, like the moon, and how the moon, the way the scientists had explained how it could have happened in terms of how the moon is at a perfect trajectory between the sun and us. So when they have these eclipses, it's just overlapping that way, right? And it's always stayed at that kind of degree, and never rotates, right? It's only have a certain side facing us. And there is a dark side of the moon, which is a misnomer because it's not always dark on that side. It's just dark compared to where we're looking at it. So they have like these ancient, let's say, African tribes that have brought down these history and how they had remembered the moon before it had gotten here. So they said that it was brought here, and before it was brought here, there was not really clouds. It was all kind of just misty, and then the whole weather kind of had been more influenced by the moon, and so people have tendencies to get out of whack when the moon's a full moon, right? And so the tides are also higher. And we are 75% water ourselves, so when the moon is that full, it's actually putting more pressure onto our brain. That's why they're called lunatics when people start acting up out of not feeling normal. So there goes another lunatic, doesn't handle the moon very well. And I'm fortunate because I'm a moon sign. I'm June 22nd, so I'm like already a lunatic already, 24/7. So it doesn't bother me when it's full moon. It's like, oh, that's another day. Anyway, I think these things that when Reagan was in office, he had a speech talking about aliens and how are we kind of dealing with that kind of faction of let me say, kind of alien type of mentalities in the government, and how everything's kind of macho and very much war minded, and it's just because there is, so to speak, there is a infiltration, okay? And when the war stopped and we started getting all these scientists from Germany, like Werner von Braun, into the space race to try to get to the moon faster, right? That was the beginning of the end of how we just pretty much done it to ourselves, having them have that much leeway, okay? Because that's basically what happened. So NASA in Hebrew, what does that mean? NASA in Hebrew means deceiver. And yes, NASA has been deceiving us a long time. This whole thing about how they are, all the pictures of the Earth, it's all from NASA, okay? That's all NASA's doing. They're using fisheye lenses. They're not telling you that the Antarctic is not a freaking continent. It's an ice wall. Okay? Now, I got to get this straight to you guys because, you're going to keep hearing it. They still want people to argue about flat Earth, situation. There is much more to our planet than what we were told. And I think, I have the balls to tell you this because I love you guys, and I think some people need to expand their method on doing the research. Now, the research that I've been doing for a long time was the Cuneiform reform that Zecharia Sitchin helped do, concerning the Sumerian text, the king list and all that. And king lists had talked about how things were in terms of how they needed slaves to mine gold. And they didn't want to do it themselves. And so you have to understand this planet and its inhabiting star, which is a red dwarf and a blue dwarf, and these stars are circumnavigating the Nibiru. So all this constellation comes in a long elliptical orbit, and I've had the speech before telling you guys about this. But anyway, that's where I get my conclusions on how the Earth is a lot larger than what's taught to us, and there's a lot more like lands and beings, cryptids, if you will, because if you're not exploring past the ice wall, we're not really learning about the other inhabitants, which there are a lot of. Even beings that have no head, and they have the eyes on their chest and everything, the mouth right here. And these are certain type of beings that live on outside of the ice wall. So this is remarkable. I like this stuff, man. There's actually some stories that we're talking about these explorations of these people that, like, ex-Navy groups that would go out past the summer gates. So the summer gates are usually opening a pass through the ice wall to get to these other continents and stuff. So it's amazing. I love the stories that they talk about, and there's a lot that have been suppressed because they don't want us to, start movements to get through the summer gates or wherever and learn about Antarctica not being a freaking continent. Excuse my language, frickers. Sorry. It's hard to talk about this because a lot of people don't want to you know what I mean? The government's what? The government's been lying to us from the get-go. And so a lot of what we're learning in schools is barely touching the surface on the truth of it all. Because there's so much that I'm finding out that it's just no, we are the age of Aquarius, where nothing can be hidden, and we're learning so much more of what has been hidden that's coming up, and that's why a lot of these two factions of the Freemasons that want to share their knowledge and help, societies bring back, the ancient sacred secret knowledge, esoteric stuff, learning about the pineal gland and how we can open it up and decalcify it. It's very important, especially learning that fluorides in our toothpaste are not good. It just calcifies our third eye, and sodas, believe it or not. Carbonation is not good. So, knocking some of these stuff out really does help clarify and help you be more in tune with your higher self, and I think that's really important. I like that